Again, we always give honor to whom honor is due. We have an incredible speaker this evening. This gentleman, we probably go back, what, 3 or 4 years? But actually, before I even caught my case, we go back that far. But this guy is a giant in the community. He is a friend of hope for prisoners. Please give it up for Chanos.
Thanks.
George, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
You got the mic. You got the gun.
Okay. Hi, everybody.
How you doing?
All right. Let me grab something over here real quick. Can you guys take a bracelet or two and then hand it around? Yeah. Awesome. Grab one of those and then pass it around. Thanks. So I'm passing around some bracelets that you guys can take with you. They've got 4 words on them. Character, courage, commitment, and compassion. Okay? I believe, first of all, I don't know, Rodney, does anybody know anything about my background? Or?
No.
No? Okay. Okay, so I was Nevada's Attorney General. And I'm currently the chairman of a company called Capriati's. You might know our sub sandwiches. Hey, let's hear it for Capriati's.
Give me a Bobby.
Yeah, give me a Bobby. Okay, and I've also got Leah here, who's from Capriati's as well. So I just want to talk to you guys about some of the things that I've learned over the years, and some of the things that I've learned recently that may resonate with some of you and that may mean something to some of you and maybe even life-changing for some of you. I believe that moments change lives. I believe that I've had it happen in my own life. I've had moments where something has happened in my life that has caused me to move in a different direction. I had a heart attack in 2012. I had a 16-year-old daughter at the time. I thought I was going to die. I came about a half an hour within dying. And that changes your life. I went into politics because when I was 6 years old, I heard over the radio, it came over the radio that JFK, John F. Kennedy, had been assassinated. My mom pulled the car to the side of the road and started crying. And that had an impression on me that changed my life. Moments can change lives. So there can be something that you can hear, something that you can see, something that someone tells you, something that you experience, and you get this epiphany moment. And all of a sudden it's like an aha moment. And it's like, wow, you know, that makes a lot of sense to me. Or that's what I want to do in life. Or that's what I want my life to become. Or that's what I want for my children, right? And so these moments, they don't announce themselves, they just kind of pop up. And this might be one of them, right? You might hear something tonight that could change your life, that could move your life in a whole new direction. I hope so, okay? I know that all of you have been through very challenging circumstance and very challenging times. And it can be extraordinarily difficult to push through that and to, you know, encounter disappointment after disappointment and challenge after challenge and lack of support after lack of support and disappointment after disappointment. And it beats you down. And it's tough. It's tough to move past that. But that's exactly what life requires. It requires that you move past that. You know, Charles Darwin was an English naturalist, a biologist, and he wrote Origin of the Species. He was the first person to discover the concept of evolution, and to popularize the concept of evolution. And Darwin told us something that's important for all of you to know. He said it's not the strongest that survive. It's not the most intelligent that survive. It's those most capable of adaptation. The ability to adapt, the ability to pivot and persevere, to encounter difficulty and to overcome it, right? Your example of going to Burger King and being in the sweltering heat and the bus being late and all of the things that are going on every day that seem to get in the way of progress, that seem to try to derail you, that seem to make it more difficult for you to accomplish your goals. Oh, if it were only different, right? If life were only different. But life is what it is. And in order to survive and thrive in what life is, you need to be able to pivot and adapt and persevere. You need to be able to overcome. You need to move in a more promising direction when you encounter adversity or you encounter difficulty. Just like Michael Jordan, who's going down the court with the ball and he meets a defender, has to pivot around that defender, has to find a different direction, a different opening, a different shot, a different player that he can pass to, that he can lean on, that can help him. He has to adapt. We all have to adapt. So understand that intelligence and strength are not the keys to a happy, successful, and meaningful life. The ability to adapt is the key. So that's one point that I want you to remember and understand. And also, it's worth noting at this point that you've been doing a hell of a lot of adapting, right? You've had to really move and pivot and find openings and find opportunities where doors have been closed, where certain paths have been shut off. So you are good at adaptation. This is a strength that you have developed over time. So the life experience that you've gone through has made you better than most at the one skill set that is most critical to survival, which is adaptation. So with every hardship that you've encountered, understand that it has strengthened you in your ability to adapt. It has strengthened you in this fundamental requirement of not only surviving, but succeeding in life. So you have to now learn how to leverage that. And how do you leverage that? The other thing that I've learned is that mindset, how we think about things, is critical. There's a gentleman who stood up and was talking earlier. I don't know where he went, but he was talking about how you think about things, right? So there are many stories about people and what they've learned about how we think about things. The mind is an incredibly powerful tool that you all have. It's every single one of us has this brain inside of us, and it's an extremely powerful. It's more powerful than you think. You know, even if you feel that it's let you down here and there, or it hasn't done what you wanted, or you have difficulty controlling your thoughts, you have a very powerful tool at your disposal, and it's your brain, and it's the way you think. Oprah Winfrey was interviewed at Stanford University in 2014, and she was asked about the failures of her philanthropic investments in Africa. So she had gone and she had built a girls' school, and she had built a library. And unfortunately, not enough people attended. So children who were in this environment, who she wanted to go to this school, sometimes their parents would rather have them carry buckets of water to help the family than go to school. Sometimes they didn't understand what the books meant and how they could change their lives. So when you don't understand the power of a book, then the book is really nothing more than firewood, right? So Oprah was asked, what did you learn? What did you learn from this experience? And she said, I learned that before you can be successful, you first have to have a sense of hopefulness, a sense of aspiration. Now think about that. A sense of hopefulness and a sense of aspiration. And if you're beat down day after day, month after month, year after year, you tend to lose that sense of hopefulness and that sense of aspiration. And yet it is that sense of hopefulness and that sense of aspiration, that mindset, that it's that allows you to succeed. So the ability to adapt and the ability to control your thoughts and the ability to believe in yourself and in your opportunity to have a better life, like you were talking about, where you can see yourself becoming a manager of that Burger King and perhaps one day owning your own Burger King, right? That is hopefulness. That is a sense of aspiration. That is a goal that will get you up every morning and cause you to want to go to work and cause you to want to be your best and cause you to want to meet customers with a smile and cause you to want to collaborate and work with your coworkers. It's that goal. It's that hopefulness and that sense of aspiration that drives you every day. And if you don't have that, if you don't have that belief in yourself and that belief in your ability to move forward and to excel, then as Henry Ford said, if you think you can, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Okay? If you think you can, you're right. And if you think you can't, that's going to become your reality. You're right again. Okay? It's what you believe. What you believe is what you will manifest. What you believe is what will become your life. Okay? Our brains are like computer software. They're wired over time. So, we don't get an owner's manual with these brains, right? We get a car. Who has looked under the hood of a car? Who knows anything about automobiles? You've looked under the hood of a car? You've looked under the hood of a car? Okay, so do you have a certain kind of familiarity, a fairly good knowledge of how the engine works?
I do.
You do? Okay, so you know more about that car and about how that works than I do. A lot more. Because I need help screwing in a light bulb. Okay? I'm not mechanical at all. We all have strengths and we all have weaknesses. Okay? Nobody's good at everything. Okay? And my weaknesses are mechanical, are one of my big ones, right? So the brain is similar to an engine, right? There are those who we have it, we use it, it's part of our life every day, but we don't know anything about how it works, right? And then there are those who have studied the human brain, and they know more about how the human brain works. And if you knew more about how the human brain works, it would give you a bit of a leg up on other people that are trying to deal with their brains just like you're trying to deal with yours. The more you know about it, the better off you're going to be. So let me tell you a little bit about how your brain works, okay? And this also will explain a lot of things about why you have different conversations with people, why you have disagreements, why they don't think the way you do, why they don't see the world the way you might on certain issues, right? Some people might think that Donald Trump is the most abhorrent creature on earth, and other people are voting for him, right? What is causing that? What is causing some people to think one way and some people to think another way? Sure.
Their beliefs.
Their beliefs, exactly. And where do those beliefs come from?
Mostly our parents.
Well, exactly. Our parents are a big part of it. Here's what happens. You have 11 million bits of information that are impacting your brain every second. The brain that you walked into this room with is not the brain that you are leaving with. The brain that you are leaving with will have been modified by your listening to this speech and by your listening to all the other speakers and by what you've experienced, what will have experienced tonight. 11 million bits of information have been impacting your brain since the moment you were born. Okay? Every day, every second of every day, you've had this flood of information. Now, depending upon the home that you grew up in, depending upon the parents that you had, depending upon the education or lack of education that you've received, depending upon what happened in your life, depending on who you hung out with, what you surrounded yourself with, the books you read, the music you listened to, everything that happened in your life, throughout your life, accounts for the way that your brain has been formed. Okay? Now, some of that, before today, you didn't have that much control over. And you didn't know, necessarily, that this was having this kind of an impact on you. But you do now. You now know that everything you read, every person you talk to, every person you hang out with, every television show you see, every movie you go to, every radio station you listen to, every song you listen to, this information is shaping your neural pathways. It's shaping your brain. If you hang out with negative people, you are going to have more negative thoughts. If you hang out with more positive people, you are going to have more positive thoughts. And the more that you do this, the more your brain will rewire. There's a concept called neuroplasticity. Our brains rewire. We have neurons that connect, they disconnect, and they reconnect. Practice and repetition is what causes guys like Steph Curry and Beyonce and Michael Jordan to perform at the level that they perform at. They train their brain. When Steph Curry shoots tens of thousands of shots, his brain actually wires that behavior. Our brains tell us everything that we do. They tell, when he's shooting that shot, it's measuring the depth perception to the basket, it's measuring the amount of force that his arm needs to use, the flex of his wrist, the tactile sensations in his fingers. All of that information is registering in his brain, and his brain is telling him how to make that shot. Roughly over 95% of the information, this 11 million bits of information that come into your brain every second, over 95% of that information comes in outside of your conscious awareness. You're not even aware of it. Okay? So all this information that goes into Steph Curry's shot, 95% of that information he's not even aware of. It's the training and repetition over and over and the pattern recognition that his brain goes through that allows the brain to calculate the trajectory of that shot, to tell the arm what to do. Steph's not telling the arm what to do. The brain is telling the arm what to do. And the brain has done it so many times that it has become automatic. Okay? So we can, and when Beyonce sings and remembers a song and remembers hundreds of other songs, that's her brain. And that's from repetition, practice, and rehearsal. Okay? So we can train our brains. You have the ability to increase your IQ. You have the ability to be smarter every day. You have the ability through practice and repetition and mindfulness, and I'll tell you a little bit about mindfulness, to improve the way that you think. And when you go back to what Oprah was talking about, that you have to believe in yourself, and what Henry Ford said, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. You have the ability to create a belief system. Okay, you are in control of that. You have the ability. Either you're going to control your mind, or your mind is going to control you. And you get to decide, right? You get to decide. Am I going to control, am I going to be driving this car? Or am I going to be on autopilot and I'm just going to let the car go where it wants, based on the 95% of the information that it's receiving that I'm not even aware of, right? Or are you going to try to be aware of it? Are you going to try to think? Are you going to try to control your thoughts? You know, some of us have negative thoughts. They pop into our minds. We don't know why, we just kind of get a negative thought, right? What is a thought? Okay, what is a thought? A thought is a transitory packet of sensory information that's floating like a passing cloud. And if it's a bad thought, it'll float on by if you let it. Or you can drag it in and you can spend time with it, right? And you can focus on it, and you can fixate on it, and you can obsess on it, right? These are choices. These thoughts are nothing more than transitory packets of sensory information. They are not facts. They are not truths. Okay? You decide what they mean and what they are. But all they are is passing thoughts. Good or bad. You decide how much weight you want to give them. Okay? You decide who you want to surround yourself with and whose thoughts you want impacting you every day. For children, if any of you have children, their brains are developing every moment of every day. By providing them with a safe and secure and calm and peaceful environment, by hugging them, by kissing them, by supporting them, by nurturing them, you are helping with their brain development. By ignoring them, by sitting them in the corner, by letting them cry for hours, by giving them an unsafe environment, you are retarding their brain's growth. So this is how our brains work, okay? And the same is true for a child as it's true for an adult. You need to surround yourself with positive, nourishing people and information as much as possible. Now that's easier said than done, because sometimes you may live with people that don't think that way, that aren't as enlightened, that haven't heard this speech, that don't know anything about these things, right? So you either have to share this information, or you have to somehow move these people into being a more positive force in your life. Or you need to distance yourself from negative forces, from negative influences, okay? If you're surrounded by negative influences, you need to try to gradually extract yourself from that environment and move yourself into a better environment where you are surrounded by more positive people, more affirming people, people who share your goals and your ambitions, people who want to help you, people who want the best for you. In 2012, when I had that heart attack, it sent my life in a whole new direction. Because I had a 16-year-old daughter and a 21-year-old nephew, I thought about the fact that I might not be here, that I came within a half an hour of dying, and that what would happen if I wasn't here? Who would advise them? Who would help them grow up? Who would answer their questions? What if my daughter wanted to get married and she wanted to know what I thought of the guy and I wasn't here? You know, what if she was trying to get a job and she was going to go on an interview and she was nervous and she needed some guidance and direction? What if she was having trouble communicating with her spouse or with her children or with her employer? Who would be there to advise her? And I thought, well, if I'm not here, you know, I'm not going to be able to do that. So what can I do? So I sat down and I started to write a letter to her, and I tried to anticipate some of these issues, some of the common things that she might run into. Issues like communication, right? How do you communicate effectively? Warren Buffett said, you want to increase your self-worth and your ability to succeed in life? He believes that as much as 50% of that might be your ability to communicate effectively, right? When you go on an interview and you're talking to someone and you're trying to convince them to hire you, or you're having a conversation with your spouse, or with your child, or with your coworker, or with your employer, or with your neighbor, or with a cop that pulls you over, right? How do you have that conversation? And the way that you have that conversation can mean everything, right? It can mean a positive encounter like you had with the police officer that pulled you over. It could mean a deadly encounter with a police officer, depending upon how you have that conversation. You know, when we look at the incidences involving police shootings, for example, there's been a lot of talk about what accounts for that. One thing that hasn't been discussed as much as it should is communication. Because poor communication in that situation can quickly escalate into a very dangerous situation. And positive communication in that situation can cause that encounter to de-escalate, right? Now, some cops are good people and some cops are bad people, right? Just like the rest of us, just like doctors, just like lawyers, just like everybody in this room. Some people are good people and some people are bad people, right? But when you encounter a police officer, there's a difference. And the difference is that he's got a gun, okay? He's got a gun. You're on the street. You're on the street, in the middle of the street somewhere, and the guy that you're talking to may not have a college education. He may have had a bad day. He may be afraid. He may mistake you for somebody that he's on alert looking out for, right? And could be a case of mistaken identity. But one variable remains constant throughout that encounter, which is that you're dealing with someone who has a gun. So common sense should tell you that the method of interaction and communication with that person, regardless of circumstance, should be one that does not cause the situation to escalate. If the cop's doing something wrong, or if they're a bad cop, you have recourse. You can take it up with the district attorney. You can take it up with your lawyer. You can take it up with the judge. These people are sitting in calm environments. They have more authority than the police officer, and they don't have guns on you, and you're not out in the middle of the street. That's who you have your arguments with. That's who you have your discussions with. That's who you raise your complaints to. Not the guy who's out in the middle of the street at midnight with a gun pulling your car over. Right? So communication is important. Negotiation. We all negotiate. We negotiate with our kids. We negotiate with our spouse. We negotiate with our employers. We negotiate with our customers. We negotiate with everyone. How do you negotiate more effectively? That's another issue that I wanted to tell my daughter about. Relationships. How do you nurture and build relationships with other people? How do you network? How do you find support structures within your community? That's another issue that I wanted to talk to her about. So I wrote this book. It began as a letter, and ultimately I wrote so much. I like to write, so I was typing away on my laptop, and all of a sudden I looked down, I've got over 100 pages on the letter, and I said, this is not a letter, this is a book, and I turned it into a book. So I brought about 50 of those that I want to give away for free. So anyone who wants one of these, please grab one. And if you didn't, and if I didn't bring enough, and you want one, just give your name to Rodney, and Rodney will give it to me, and I'll see to it that you get one. Okay? So I just want to go over some of the chapters in this book and why I think it's worth your time, and why I think you should read it, and why I think you should pass it on to your kids. Okay? This is what I'm leaving my daughter. This is what I'm leaving my family. You know, I don't love anyone more than I love her. So this is the best I've got, and this is, you know, what I'm giving to those I love. So I'm given the same. I'm given the same. I'm given the same. I'm given the same information to you, and I hope you can share it with others that you love. The first chapter is the importance of reflection and self-examination. So it's about thinking about who you are, what your skill set is, what you're good at, what your weaknesses are. Like I pointed out, I'm not good with mechanics, right? I'm also not a financial genius. My partners are better with numbers than I am. I'm good with letters. I'm good with words. I'm good with writing, you know, and it's what I like. And so I'm passionate about it. And so it comes easy to me, all right? What are you good at? What are you passionate about? I'm pursuing what I'm good at. I'm pursuing what I'm passionate about. What is it that you are good at? And what is it that you're passionate about? So that's self-examination and reflection. An early fork in the road, conformity and nonconformity. There are different types of conformity and nonconformity. Some of the greatest successes of all time have come from nonconformists. People who didn't follow the rules. People who took their own path. People who went a different direction, right? So there's different types of conformity and nonconformity, right? There's stylistic nonconformity. I just want to look different. I want to be different. I want to act different. But there's no real purpose to it, you know? Or there's an artistic, you know, someone's artistic and they're saying, you know, this is, I want to be an artist and I want to look and feel like an artist and I want to act like an artist. And you know, so there are different types of conformity and nonconformity, some of which can actually help you and advance you, and some of which can hold you back. So understanding the differences and why you're doing what you're doing is important. What do you want to do with your one and only life? You've got one and only life. This isn't a dress rehearsal, okay? This is the real deal. So you've been put on this earth. You've got this life to live. What do you want to do with it? Today is the first day of the rest of your life. What do you want to do with the rest of your life? Right? Maybe that's a moment for some of you. Maybe that resonates with some of you. Maybe you'll think about it, and maybe you'll decide that you're going to do something different, that you're going to make a change, that you're going to have a better life, that you're going to do that which is required. You know, Winston Churchill once said, sometimes it's not enough that we do our best. Sometimes we must do that which is required. Right? So, developing your plan of action. This book takes you through, step by step, how to develop a plan of action. Okay? Making the right choices. So the things that happen to us in life, many of which we don't have control over. But the one thing you will always have control over, and never lose sight of this fact, is you will always have the power to choose how to react to whatever happens. That's within you. Okay? So something bad can happen to you that you didn't choose, but how you choose to react to what happened will always be within your power. So do you choose, you know, Buddha talks about the two arrows. The first arrow that hits us and injures us, and the second arrow that we inflict upon ourselves by the way that we handle the first arrow. Right?
That's good.
Yeah. So you may not have a choice over that first arrow, but you have a choice whether or not you want to stab yourself with that second arrow. Okay? So make the right choices. The meaning and importance of character. Character is essentially dependability, reliability, honesty, trustworthiness. It's the things, we all want to be that person, and we want to surround ourselves with people who are like that. It doesn't matter what activity you're engaged in. Whether you're a lawyer or a bank robber, it doesn't matter. People want to be surrounded by people that they can trust and that are dependable. Okay? Right? You don't want a guy driving your getaway car that shows up late, right? You want people that are dependable, okay? So I don't care what it is you're doing. I don't care what it is you're doing. You need to be that person that other people can count on, because that is a secret to success. That it's non-negotiable. If you are consistently undependable, you will find that people will not involve themselves with you. They'll distance themselves. They won't include you in certain things. But if you are dependable, if you are reliable, if you are someone that they can rely on and count on and trust, then there's always a need for people like that. And you want to be one of those people. How to communicate effectively. There's a chapter on communication, how important listening and choosing your words carefully and understanding the context of the communication, how important those are. You know, for some of you who have kids that are in their teens or early 20s, this might also be important for you. The human brain doesn't fully develop until you're 25 or 26. The prefrontal cortex of the brain is the part that controls logical reasoning. Okay? Your amygdala, the primitive portion of your brain, develops early on at puberty. You know what you want by the time you're 12 or 13. You know what you want, but you don't know whether or not you should have it or it's good for you, or whether or not it's a good decision until you're 25 or 26 is when you really have full capacity of your logical reasoning portion of the brain. So if you are having discussions with a 19-year-old or an 18-year-old or a 20-year-old or somebody who's under 25, understand that you're talking to someone whose logical reasoning portion of their brain is not yet fully developed. So cut them some slack. Let their brain develop. Let them grow a little older and a little wiser before you judge them or before you give up on them. Okay? Maybe some parents that you guys may have known could have used that information. Maybe they could have cut you some slack, you know, when you were younger. But now you can to those who come up behind you. How committed are you to succeeding? Commitment is huge. You know, things don't happen in life easily. We have to go after them. Sometimes time and time and time again. You know, sometimes if in sales, for example, whether you're selling a product or you're selling yourself, sometimes you have to knock on 20 doors to get one door to answer. You have to go on 20 job interviews before one guy says yes. But then all of a sudden that one person says yes. And not only do they say yes, but they see something in you. And they want to help you and they want you to succeed. People want to generally help other people. You know, I grew up in Las Vegas. I've been here since I went to kindergarten here. And I have never been prouder of my community, of this community, than after the October 1 shooting. After the October 1 shooting, I saw this community come together like a real tribe. Like people who really cared about each other. There were lines lining up. I was trying to deliver bottles of water and food. Capriati's was delivering food all over Las Vegas, Clark County. And we would drive up and there were lines of people donating that we would have to wait in line to be able to just donate food or water. There were lines at the convention center, cars backed up so far trying to deliver water that they had to shut it down and stop taking deliveries. That was an outpouring of this community. That was this community coming together to help people in time of crisis. You have a community here. Las Vegas is a good home community. They care. They want to help. Nobody wants to carry anybody else on their back forever, or help somebody or make them their responsibility forever. But they are willing to extend a hand. They are willing to open a door. They are willing to speak to you. They are willing to, you know, support you in any way that they can, through counseling, through educational seminars, through job referrals, through training. So understand that you have this resource. Embrace this community, and this community will embrace you. And those of you that are in this room now are doing just that. You are embracing the community, and the community is embracing back. And that's what you're experiencing right now. And understand that that can happen time and time again throughout your life, through different organizations throughout the community that are willing to help. Courage. Overcoming fear. How do you overcome fear? How do you develop courage? Baby steps. You know, I remember my daughter when she was like less than 2 years old. She was trying to walk up the stairs in our house. And she had never walked up the stairs. And she walked up the first step, and then she turned to her parents and she looked at us for approval. And we smiled and clapped and applauded the fact that she had made it up the first stair. So what did she do? She went for the next stair. And then what did she do? She looked over again, and she sought approval, and she got it. And then what did she do? She went for the next stair, and she looked over and she saw it. Before we knew it, she was running up that stairs, right? Filled with enthusiasm and belief in herself, right? Baby steps turn into powerful strides. One step at a time. How do you eat an elephant? One piece at a time. How do you develop courage? One step at a time. Each time you take a step, each time you move forward, one of two things is going to happen. Either you are going to succeed, in which case it's a cause for celebration and affirmation, and that's wonderful. You met with some success, and that's what you were after. Or you're going to fail. And if you fail, you're going to learn. You're going to learn how to pivot. You're going to learn how to adapt. You're going to learn how resilient you are. You're going to learn how strong you are. You're going to learn what you're capable of. You're going to learn that you're capable of overcoming rejection and setbacks and disappointment. So either way, our life sends us different things. Sometimes they're good, and we catch those, and those are great. And sometimes they're bad. Now, if we treat all those things that are bad just as arrows that are flung upon us and we get no benefit from them, then we're not getting the benefit out of half the things that are happening in our lives. We need to take the bad and we need to profit from it. We need to learn how to turn lemons into lemonade. We need to learn how to turn adversity into strength builders, right? It's all mindset, folks. It's how you think about things, you know? And you have that power to control how you think about things. So believe. Believe in yourselves. Every person in this room has greatness in them. Every person in this room is capable of achieving far more than they've ever achieved before. Your life is only beginning. Take whatever's happened in the past and use it. Leverage it. Stand upon it. Use it as your foundation. And the more difficult it's been and the harder it's been, understand something. That only represents the strength of your foundation. The more adversity you've been through, the stronger the foundation that you are building your life upon. Okay? Use it. Use it to your advantage. Have hope. Believe in yourself. Okay? I hope you enjoyed the book. And if anyone doesn't get one and wants one, give a name to Rodney and an email address, and I'll drop some, or just give a name to Rodney. I'll drop some off here, and you'll be able to pick them up in a couple of weeks. I've got to order them from Amazon. It'll take 10 days for them to get here, so give it 2 or 3 weeks for them to arrive. But if he's got your name, he'll have a book for you. Okay? Thank you.